the TripleAreno Home Show. We are here with a series of interviews, or we call it just a conversation with. And today I am delighted to have a conversation with Sébastien Garnier. Hi, Sébastien.
Hi, Simona. Great to see you and hear you and hear that everything is fine.
So Sébastien works as a innovation and project manager at Housing Europe. So Housing Europe is a European federation of public, cooperative and social housing. Maybe Sébastien will tell a little bit more about Housing Europe, and he has been working for almost 10 years in the social and affordable housing sector. First as advisor in the financial and public affairs department, and then he moved to Belgium to work in Belgium, and he was later responsible for managing the European affair at the Brussels office of ADES, and then of course he moved to the social housing market and started to work at Housing Europe. Sébastien, how long have you been involved in Horizon 2020 projects? And so we know that, of course, you worked also on other fields. How do these differ from other projects for Housing Europe during your professional career?
Well, Horizon 2020 projects are quite big projects, I have to say. So they require quite a lot of investments, first of all, to prepare. It's only the very best proposals get there. So the evaluation is kind of a tough process, as you know. So it requires a lot of investments from the different partners and the coordinators to draft a very good proposal. We are very lucky to work with good coordinators like yourself, actually, who are quite successful in this task. But Housing Europe itself is involved in around 5-6 Horizon 2020 projects right now, and we are, for us, it's a very good opportunity actually to be at the forefront of the innovations in a sector, especially when it's about energy efficiency, renovations, renewables, and it's also a way to work together with local housing companies. So although we are indeed a European federation, and you can get sucked up a little bit, in macro political issues, Horizon 2020 programs allows us to keep both feet on the ground and see what is really happening, what are the barriers, what is working, what are the latest innovations, but also what is really the need of the sector, to develop itself.
Yeah, and indeed, you have a specific role also in TripleAreno. So Housing Europe is one of our, we call it umbrella association, right? So you're really representing a share of our market. So indeed, the housing, the social housing sector. Can you tell a little bit more about, talking specifically about TripleAreno? What does this project mean for Housing Europe and for the members you're representing, and what's, in your opinion, the added value from this specific project?
Yeah, so TripleAreno is really kind of a different project compared to the others for us, because it's not so much focusing on the renovation technologies, the materials or the installation or energy systems. That's being done in a lot of other projects. TripleAreno is focusing actually a lot more about the human interconnections that are needed to make this, renovations and deep renovation especially possible. So what is interesting for us in TripleAreno is how you can use, new IT tools but really to enhance this the interconnection between the different players in this. And that's something you don't see in many other projects, which have much more, let's say, hardware or technical components. So this, let's say, soft human component in TripleAreno is very important for us, and it's especially important because it's something we see every day in the social, public and cooperative housing sector, that the human component is really important to achieve a higher rate of renovations. You need to have your tenants aligned behind those goals. Not only them, but also the whole other supply chain.
Yeah.
And this is what the TripleAreno tries to achieve, to create a kind of platform to connect all the players.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, Housing Europe has this specific vision towards the social housing market and sector. What are, in your opinion, the main barriers that are still existing towards more affordable, attractive, and acceptable home renovations in the social housing sector?
So there are still quite a few barriers. Of course, the most important one in our case is the affordability issue. So when deciding on renovation measures and policies, we have to balance different priorities. One being to keep the housing costs as low as possible, because we are targeting vulnerable groups with very limited means. And the other one is that, of course, through the renovation and deep renovation, you can also achieve that same goal. Mm-hmm. So by lowering the energy bill. Mm-hmm. But we have a split incentive because our sector a lot of times is not focusing on ownership, but more on rental. Mm-hmm. So that means that the investor needs to find a way how to translate the savings on the energy bill to some kind of extra income stream to make this investment possible.
Yeah.
But of course, then that comes in mind is the subsidies for a big part of the social housing sector. And in many countries, not all by the way, but there is use of subsidies. So there the challenge is to, of course, use the subsidies wisely because it's about using public means. But the big barrier we see there is that, of course, the debt ceilings mm-hmm. That are imposed at European level as well.
Yeah.
You know, they are limiting also the ability for public authorities. So and these are quite strict. Then what we see as another, I would not call it as a barrier, but it's something that still needs to be, I think, developed a little bit more, is that when focusing on the indicators for energy efficiency, there is a little bit too much emphasis on individual buildings and the efficiency, the performance of a building instead of taking the building as a whole of a community. Mm-hmm. And not only looking at energy performance in a theoretic way, but really looking at in terms of CO2 savings, for instance, and at local level. That means, you know, you can connect buildings with each other and make extra savings.
Yeah.
Or by sharing energy, or by using energy sources that are available at community level. Mm-hmm. And I think this needs to be developed a little bit more.
Yeah, indeed, the connection to the community, right? Also working on social pressure, like peer-to-peer social pressure, but also peer-to-peer mechanism to build a community and to make this also energy saving salient for people in a different way, like as a commodity that could be used in a different way. So
Yeah.
yeah, we are now realizing how much technology is supportive to our lives, especially in these days. So we're really living in an area of digitalization, and we're using technology more and more. So how do you foresee a future in which also people living in social housing could, just plan their renovation together with the social housing company, maybe through digital platforms, and comfortably sitting in their couch or on the kitchen table?
Yeah, there are a couple of new ways that are being experimented as well, of course, in TripleA-reno. I think one really nice feature is the use of virtual reality, and to show the people what they can expect, how their building will look like after renovation. So that's a very important one. In the TripleAreno project, you call it morphologic design, right? But one of the aspects of that is to show the people, because that's very important. The way we see, when you try to convince people to agree with the renovation works in their building, that they have an idea about the aesthetics, the final aesthetics of a building. That's an important driver. Of course, you need to show the cost. So what will it mean for them in the end, for their wallet? This is also an aspect that you can show through a platform. And then I think there are all kinds of ways to involve people through the different phases of a project. So basically, there are three phases that you need to focus on when you're working with your tenants. You have the preparation phase. So this is the let's say onboarding phase, where you have to inform the people, and you have to do it, of course, in a very smart way, because they are busy with their own lives. This is not their main priority. So you need to be very clear in the information you provide, very visual information. Sometimes it's done through meetings, but of course an online platform can also help. Not for all, by the way. It's very important to remember not everyone has access to, internet or is internet savvy. So it's a lot of times it's done through meetings and a lot of coffee. And then you have the second phase, which is the construction works. So this is very, very important, because there, people are in their private environment, and there can be a lot of disturbance, a lot of noise, a lot of dust sometimes involved as well in renovation works. Contact with the workers in your home or outside your home. So that has to be done well. Here, the platform can play a role as well, because people can provide feedback to a platform about if they're satisfied or not about the renovation work. And then the last phase is the third phase, is, let's say, let's call it the after sales phase, right? Because then the renovation works are done. Maybe people are experiencing a kind of a new living environment with new systems. But they need to be informed about how to use them well, because otherwise you cannot reach the full potential of a renovation. So this also requires contact with the tenants and provision of information, and also feedback from their sides. I'm hearing strange noises in my new home, my renovated home. What is it? Is it normal? What should I do? How is the energy performance doing actually?
Absolutely. And so indeed, you mentioned something very important, the fact that in TripleAreno, we are designing this platform, but it's indeed a co-creation process in which the different project partners are contributing also with different perspectives, because of course we want to design this platform for private homeowners, for people living in social housing companies, and so it's very important to take the outlook, the lens of different perspective like yours. Can you tell us a little bit more specifically, talking again more about Housing Europe? What's the role of Housing Europe in this? I mean, generally speaking, which is your objective for supporting this renovation wave, and then the specific role in TripleAreno as well.
Yeah, so Housing Europe is a European federation. Our members are the national federations for social, public, and cooperative housing in Europe. So we have members in almost all of the EU member states, and also outside of the EU. Our role in participating in TripleAreno is really to work with our members in this field, to see how far these new tools can help, what needs to be developed more, what are indeed the different barriers in terms of policy, so what can be done more at European level, and I think we learn a lot. Like I said in the beginning, it gives us a feedback from what is happening on the ground, really, not only in terms of the activities of the social housing sector, but really also how is the perception among I shouldn't call them end users, because I don't like this word very much, but the people in the dwellings, the tenants, the residents in the communities, how they perceive this whole renovation wave. This is very important. These things can go wrong, if we impose it on people. If in the end the solutions that are required are not cost effective and increasing rents instead of lowering housing costs and energy bills. So for us, it's very important to keep a track on it. And I think the kind of platform that is developed in TripleAreno, the testing of it, but also the implementation can really help in that aspect to combine those.
Yeah, absolutely. And Sébastien, if you could take 3 lessons that you've learned so far in TripleAreno and share it with your colleagues or with people that would like to know more about this project, which one you would choose?
So for me, there was a very nice experience that we all did together within the project, where we worked on the storytelling. So this was really about getting in the shoes of different persons that are involved in a renovation, and different residents. And there you notice there are so many situations, personal situations, local circumstances, because sometimes we are talking about this renovation wave, for instance, and the industrialization, the mass customization, But then if you look at and do this exercise from a kind of more anthropological point of view.
It's a human process, right? It's people involved and they come with stories. I agree. That was very, very, very funny. Yeah. And
that was a really good experience. So you need to take into account a lot of these things. Then as another lesson, I think the importance of working together with the rest of the supply chain is also very important, and trying to integrate supply chains. So working together towards a common goal, and making sure that all the different steps in this deep renovation efforts are all aligned. So that means combining the different elements, and that's also something, by the way, we see in other projects, right? We need to have, and especially how the social housing sector is really focusing on this. They call it supply chain management, but this is also something that is in the platform, is to make sure that you work on common goals and then share the added value with each other, right? So it's more about cooperation than competition sometimes.
I think that lesson really taught us that we need to have a filter in communication as well, in a sense that when we're trying to enforce renovation also at the big level, right, we need to come close to the people who are going to receive this. And it's not just coming close with actions, because sometimes people have different values and probably they value more having privacy in their homes rather than having a better home. But we know that these actions are needed. So there is a lot of translation work, which is not just from technical to more user-friendly, but also understanding like local needs and local dynamics. And indeed, having partners like you being able to make this translation is fundamental, especially in these projects.
Yeah.
Sébastien,
maybe if I can add another very nice element of the TripleAreno, just to finalize, but I have to mention is of course the whole gamification aspect.
Of course.
And to use incentives and also make it a little bit fun, right? To go through this deep renovation and see it really as a challenging thing. And actually the whole board game, the offline, the real board game experience was also for me very interesting. I have to admit, a bit doubtful in the beginning. But when we started testing it within our own team at Housing Europe and with others, you could really see how a game can help you think about certain aspects of a renovation. Even if they are sometimes very technical, you get sucked up into, okay, now I have to, I have a certain budget, I have to make decisions about what I prefer. So this was for me very, very nice also to work on the whole gamification aspect and how that can be used to trigger,
We had the same feedback from also our engineers at Huygen when we played the game with them. They were so hooked up and they really wanted to give feedback, and I started to get into the details of the technical installations, and I would never expect to have such a feedback, but indeed it's so powerful. It's so powerful because it's engaging, and you lose the concept that you're doing something because you have to, but through the game you internalize some information that maybe will come back in a second moment. But because you're focused on playing, you don't realize that you're, receiving very, very important bits of information.
Yeah, exactly.
So, Sébastien, I would like to conclude this interview or this conversation together with a message, like a message of hope. What are your hopes for the future of this project, and really how, in the best case scenario, you would imagine that TripleAreno or project like this could really make a change towards this renovation wave in Europe to happen?
Yeah, I think that there's really a couple of elements that we just discussed that are that also after the project ends are really worth to try to exploit more. And to connect people with each other. So through the hardware, work on the soft sides of the whole project.
Absolutely. I really wanted to thank you for this interview. It was a nice conversation we had, and we hopefully gonna see each other very soon.
Yes, I hope so as well. Thank you very much for this interview. I'm looking forward to the end result and hear everyone else also on the interviews. And indeed, let's hope this COVID mess ends soon, and we can work together and continue in that TripleA-reno project.
Exactly. Thanks.
Okay. Bye bye.